What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to some Elite Fantasy Hoops with Mike Zakarian. And yes, we are rocking a Luke Kornet shirt. In today's video, we are going to be ranking the top 20 NBA guards for this upcoming fantasy basketball season. And I promise to do less than a minute on each player. So we're in and out of here in 20 minutes. But before we get started, if this is your first time checking out some of our content, make sure you smash the subscribe, hit the little notification bell so you know when all that sweet content is dropping. Let's go. Let's go. To kick us off, number 20, we're going to work our way up to one. I'm not just going to give you number one right away. We need that suspense. Coming in at number 20, we're tipping things off with the Dallas Mavericks. And can you imagine if I said number 20 was Luka? No, it's his running mate, Kyrie Irving. Kyrie finally seems to be having fun playing basketball again. Last season, averaged 25 points, 5 boards, and 5 dimes. The Mavericks also added Klay Thompson. So all the defense that was geared toward just trying to stop Kyrie and Luka, well, now they have the sharp shooting 50% of the Splash Brothers over there in the corner. They've got year 2 of Derek Lively. They're going to be having to pay attention to more guys. It's just going to make things easier for Kyrie. So he's leading us off, number 20. We're going north of the border to the Toronto Raptors, and I'm looking at you, Emmanuel, quickly. IQ down the stretch last year was pretty fun for the Toronto Raptors. Now, I think this team's going to be pretty bad, but score a lot of points. And Emmanuel Quickley is going to be doing most of the facilitation. I'm sure we'll see some point forward with Scotty Barnes. But IQ last season dropped over 17 points, 5 dimes, and 4 boards a game. And half of that season was spent with the New York Knicks. And that was before he was unleashed and the governor was taken off. But what I really liked from IQ was down the stretch, he was averaging over 20 points a game, over 7 dimes, and over 7 boards. He was just dominant on the fantasy side of things. And during that stretch, he was also shooting over 36% from 3 on volume. So if he continues to grow off that, I like what we're seeing from IQ. And I'm terrified to say this one because what we saw in the Olympics was not great, Bob, and that's the Denver Nuggets' Jamal Murray. Now, last season, Jamal averaged over 21 points, over 6 dimes, over 4 boards, and I feel like at some point he has to make an all-star team, right? I don't think he gets zapped by the Monstars. He's still got that game in him. I'm going to bank on him being a little bit tired from a long finals run and then another long NBA season and then playing in the Olympics. Maybe he was a little beaten down. And with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope exiting the Denver Nuggets and heading to Orlando, someone's going to have to pick up some of that shooting. I think we're going to see Jamal. I'm praying we're going to see Jamal continue to do it. And on the flip side of things, an Olympic performance that was actually enticing is Josh Giddey, who finds a new home in the Chicago Bulls, and the Bulls are going to be so bad. I know they still have Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic on their roster. I don't know how long that's going to last, but I do know the keys are going to get turned over to Josh. We're even seeing Giddey in Olympic basketball step back and knock down some triples. And yes, I know the three-point line in FIBA is a little bit closer, but if Josh can somehow continue to knock down the outside shot while also having the ball in his hand for the majority of the time, I feel like he's going to have a ton of fantasy upside. And I know Kobe White is still there, and everybody is so excited from what we saw from Kobe White the second half of the NBA season, but I do still think Josh Giddey is going to have his hands in just about everything. Please don't make a joke there. Heading to the toilet bowl of the Los Angeles Clippers, and yes, I know that team's going to be in a weird spot, but James Harden is still James Harden. And now you remove Paul George from the equation. That means the ball's going to be in his hands even more. Now, James Harden did have a down year offensively last season. His career numbers are averaging 24, 5, and 7. And last season, his assists went up, but his points went from 24 a game to 16 a game. Now, again, you remove Paul George. Maybe there's more shots to go around. Maybe James Harden does a little bit more, but I still think because he can contribute in so many different ways in racking up assists and rebounds and still getting those double-digit points, we might not be seeing Houston Rockets James Harden, but that makes sense. You spend that much time in a club, it's going to add up. But I do still think he can be a fantasy contributor. It's Dame time. Now, a lot of people are going to be mad. Why are you putting Dame so low? I'm sorry. I still have not shaken off the rust of what we saw Dame do last year with the Milwaukee Bucks. I know he was a sieve on defense, still had some highlights on offense, but clearly didn't really figure out his role in that two-man game with Giannis. We saw glimpses of it, but we didn't see it for the entire season. And I know Doc Rivers is on the media tour right now in the Bill Simmons podcast being like, the thing about Dame is he didn't work out at all in the offseason because he didn't want to get hurt, which I still can't figure out how that made sense. Wouldn't you get more hurt if you were working out less? Isn't your body not prepared for the NBA season? Anyways, I digress. I still think Dame's going to be incredible offensively, and he's going to have those nights. I would rather take, well, as you're going to see, 15 guards ahead of him, and we're going to start right now. We're going back to the brotherly love city of Philadelphia, Tyrese Maxey. Maxey coming off a career year where he went from 18 points a game to almost 26 points a game, making his first All-Star team, averaging over 3 boards and over 6 dimes as well. And yes, I know we just talked about James Harden getting to do a little bit more because Paul George left and Paul George landed in Philadelphia. So maybe you're saying, hey, that's less shots to go around. If anything we learned about Tyrese Maxey is the more talent around him, the better he is offensively. If you compare some of the games where Embiid missed and Maxey continued to play, his numbers actually went down a little bit. So yeah, of course, Paul George is probably going to take some shots away from Maxey. But even if you're concerned about that, if we know anything about Paul George and Joel Embiid, well, those fellers are going to miss some games. So I don't think it's going to affect Maxey's volume too much, and he's still going to be a dominant performer. And last year was the first year we saw him take that lead. So what if he takes another lead? Maybe Maxey ends up being 1B to Embiid's 1A, and Paul George does what Paul George does best: podcasts. All right, number 14, play the drop.
Detroit basketball! Detroit basketball! Detroit!
That's right, it's Cade Cunningham. Cade Cunningham coming off a career best season with almost 23 points a game, over 7.5 assists a game, and 4 boards. And the good news is, even though the Detroit Pistons are still going to be paying Monty Williams, he's at least not going to be coaching them anymore. And JB Bickerstaff's going to come in, and we've seen guards excel under the tutelage of JB Bickerstaff. So sign me up for Cade Cunningham. What does a fox say? All right, I hope that doesn't get taken down from YouTube because my voice sounded so much like the band. And I don't want to be dealing with a copyright lawsuit. Not yet, anyways. Now, some might be thinking we should be taking De'Aaron Fox a little bit earlier. He did average over 26 points per game, over 5 dimes, and over 4 boards. And some might say I'm a hater. Maybe I'm not lighting the beam bright enough. But as we creep up closer to the top 10, I feel like I can just make cases for other guards to have a bigger fantasy impact this season. And with the addition of DeMar DeRozan, I feel like we got to pay attention to how quickly they're going to be playing offense now. One of the things that I loved about the Fox-Sabonis combo is that the Sacramento Kings were just flying up and down the court, not really worrying about defense. And we knew the ball was probably going to be in Fox's hands more often than not. And now you bring in DeMar DeRozan, who is an ultimate professional bucket getter. However, he doesn't usually do that in a quick pace. So if the offense is going to slow down a little bit, if DeMar is going to continue to do what he does, and that's score 20 to 22 points a game, how much does that slow down some of Fox's numbers? And again, we're talking about the top 20 fantasy guards in the game. So all of these guys are still great picks. They're all going to perform, but we're going to nitpick a little bit as we get to the top. Now, this next name, I'm going to have some of you saying, wow, that's way too high. That dude's not that good. And then I'm going to have some of you saying, that's too low. Why are you a hater, kid? Are you a hater? And it's Devin Booker. Now, maybe I'm still too busy saluting the American flag after Devin Booker changed his entire game, turned into a defensive menace, ball-stopping guard while just knocked down some open threes, which is not what we're used to with Devin, but he helped bring home the gold. However, I don't know. Maybe it was just seeing him and Kevin Durant play together with good vibes. They're on a slide. They're in a pool. They're having a great time. Devin Booker last season quietly averaged over 27 points, almost 7 dimes, and 4 boards a game. And this addition to the Suns roster, I don't know if you would immediately be like, oh, that'll make Devin Booker better, but I do think bringing an actual point guard, who would have guessed an actual point guard to a roster is going to make the Suns a little bit more efficient offensively. And it's also going to take some of the workload away from Devin Booker, which I think might have slowed him down a little bit. So Tyus Jones, I think Tyus Jones coming to the Suns makes Devin Booker a little bit better. I'm really excited for what we're going to see from Phoenix. The only thing that makes me nervous is that these guys seem to be brittle. They get hurt. Book did play 68 games, but we've seen him battle some groin and hammy injuries. You got KD. Who knows if he can stay healthy and stay on the court. You got whatever's going on with Bradley Beal. The vibes might be a little bit weird in Phoenix, but I'm still buying in on Devin Booker. And again, I apologize to those who say he should be top 10 and those who are like, how do you take Booker ahead of Fox? Now insert your favorite bear meme. Yes, chef. After what we just saw him do for Team USA as he turned into Superman, knocking down triple after triple, helping us bring back the gold. Even that shot at the hip was insane. Now, of course, I'm not really concerned about Steph's ability on the offensive end. He's still going to be a fantasy monster. My only concern, well, it's really 2 concerns. One, he's 37 years old. That's close to my age. I don't know if I'd be drafting me in a lot of these situations. Number 2, I just don't think Golden State's going to be good. And now a lot of people are going to be like, oh, but they brought in so many really good basketball players like Kyle Anderson and DeAnthony Melton and Buddy Hield. I don't know. You look at the West, I don't see a world in which they're anywhere better than the 9th seed, maybe. Front office seems a little bit weird right now in Golden State. And if somehow they get out the gates pretty slow and Draymond punches someone, whether it's a fan, a coach, or a teammate, I feel like all are on the table. That before Christmas, maybe they're well out of the playoff race, and maybe they're like, hey, Steph, why don't we rest those legs, get a good draft pick, and try to retool for next season? I'm going out on a limb here and saying LaMelo Ball might actually be healthy this season. Now, when LaMelo is healthy, he's great out there. He's averaging almost 24 points a game, 8 dimes, and almost 5 boards. A little streaky with the 3-ball, anywhere between 35 and 37%, but we've seen flashes from LaMelo that show elite fantasy production. I'm not saying LaMelo's going to make an all-star team. I'm not even saying LaMelo's going to make the Charlotte Hornets a playoff team. And all of the guards we've listed, I'd rather have them on a winning team. But we're talking fantasy, baby. We want those Anthony stats. And I think people have forgotten about LaMelo because he's too busy getting hurt and driving recklessly. So you're going to notice this top 10 is all about redemption, baby. And I'm going to be in early on the LaMelo Ball redemption tour as the Charlotte Hornets win probably 27 games. It's all about hamstrings. If this hamstring is healthy, he's probably supposed to be number 4. And if his hamstring's not healthy, he could be as far back as 25. And that's the guy who got an A on the group project without actually doing anything for Team USA, Tyrese Halliburton. The first half of last NBA season was frequently putting up these big-time double-doubles where it's like 28 points and 15 dimes, was leading the league in assists, and was leading the Indiana Pacers to the illustrious in-season tournament final where they got smoked by the Lakers, and then he tweaked that hammy. And even though the Pacers added Pascal Siakam and went all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, Hallie was never quite the same after dealing with that injury. And even Brian Windhorst was reporting as recently as last week that he was still battling an injury as he was a part of Team USA on their run to the Olympic gold. Now, again, if Halliburton comes back and he's healthy and he's able to do those 28.15 dimes, 4 boards a game on limited turnovers, then Halliburton absolutely should be almost at the top of this list behind some of the big-time names that we're going to get to in a second. But there's something about that health that makes me a little bit nervous, and we still have yet to see him stay healthy for a full season. And hey, listen, Hallie, prove me wrong, baby. A-Town down, Trae Young. Now, the Atlanta Hawks, well, they have no idea what they're doing. They took Zach Ricochet, number 1 overall, the Frenchman. They got rid of DeJounte Murray, who went over to the New Orleans Pelicans. But the one thing that I like about Trae Young is, well, the Atlanta Hawks don't have their first-round pick this year, so they're not going to try to lose. So even though that team may stink, I still feel like Trae Young's going to be out there playing 82 games unless somehow they get that pick back. And if you are a San Antonio Spurs fan, wow, you have the Hawks' first-round pick. But Trae Young is coming off a season where he averaged over 25 points a game and over 10 dimes a game. We were just talking about Tyrese Halliburton being an incredible double-double guy where he was getting high point numbers and high assist numbers. Well, Trae Young's already doing that, and we don't have to worry about the injuries as much. We also don't have to worry about tanking. So even though, again, I'm probably not going to want to watch any of these Atlanta Hawks games, I do think Trae Young has a ton of upside this season. The new captain of the New York City Knickerbockers, the Bing Bong Boys, Jalen Brunson. Now, Brunsanity is coming off an insane career year for the New York Knicks where he averaged over 28 points per game, almost 7 dimes and 4 boards, was a fantasy god. And some people might be saying, how do you have other guards ahead of Jalen Brunson right now? And hey, I might be wrong. Maybe he puts up the same exact numbers on the same efficient shooting again next season. My only concern, it has nothing to do with Jalen Brunson's offensive abilities. It's just that Julius Randle was missing a ton of time. Now we see Josh Hart out there being a little bit more active. Dante DiVincenzo, OG Anunoby is now on the Knicks, and so is Mikal Bridges. So I do still think Jalen Brunson has an incredible year, but as we're getting up closer to the top 5, my only concern is that maybe he's not taking as many shots as we're used to. Maybe Tom Thibodeau comes to his senses for the first time in his history of coaching. He's like, hey, maybe I shouldn't be playing my guys 82 games, 45 minutes a game. So Jalen Brunson's still a fantastic pick, a fantastic so rare get. I just think maybe we saw his ceiling last season, but who knows? Maybe you put a captain on the chest and all of a sudden you just start dropping 45 every single night. Now, longtime fans of the content might be surprised to see this next guy as high as he is because sometimes I speak ill of this man, but Spida, got paid, staying in Cleveland. Now, the Cleveland Cavaliers, who it seemed like they were about to trade everybody on their team, they're keeping Jared Allen, they're keeping Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell. The only person they got rid of is their coach, JB Bickerstaff, and they bring in Kenny Atkinson. Now, you might only know Kenny Atkinson as the assistant coach for the Golden State Warriors. Well, once upon a time, that man was coaching the Brooklyn Nets, and he made D'Angelo Russell look good, and I think that's very impressive. And if he can make a guard like D'Lo look good, imagine what he can do with the backcourt of Spida and Darius Garland. Donovan Mitchell last season was really flirting with the MVP conversation before he got dinged up and missed some time. He only played 55 games last year. So the concern is, can he play enough games that he turns you into a fantasy genius? But last season, during those 55 games, my guy averaged over 26 points a game, over 6 dimes, over 5 boards. And he was shooting almost 37% from 3 on freaking volume. Ja Morant. You guys forgot about Ja Morant. Sure, he pulled some guns out. It was a little uncomfortable, and then he got hurt. Memphis Grizzlies fell apart. But the Grizzlies, when Ja was out there, were a team that was so competitive that we were thinking they were title contenders. Now, he only played 9 games last year, and in those 9 games, he averaged 25 points, 8 dimes, and 5 boards. He looked like he didn't even miss a beat. And for a career, he was averaging 22 and 7. And now he's coming back. Everybody's been making fun of him for over a year now. Everybody's forgotten about Memphis. They've moved on to the OKC Darlings. Nikola Jokic, the new American face of the league, Ant-Man. Well, if Ja has that dog in him, we're going to find out this season. And I want to be on board and overweight in all of the fantasy aspects. Give me the Ja Morant. Buy your redemption merch. I just name dropped number 3. That's Ant-Man. Anthony Edwards played 79 of 82 games, took the Minnesota Timberwolves to the Western Conference Finals, even splashed some excitement this summer in Paris with goals. He was throwing down alley-oops from Kevin Durant, making fun of his teammate Rudy Gobert in the process. Ant-Man last season had a career year, averaging over 25 points, 5 boards, and 5 dimes. And if he takes another leap, which all signs are pointing to that, we might get a 30-point-a-game year from Ant-Man, and I want to be ready. Speaking of 30-point scorers and MVP ready, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. SGA is coming in at number 2 from the OKC Thunder, who did average over 30 points a game, 6 dimes, and 5 boards, and seems to be heading to his peak right now and is next in line to win an MVP. The only thing missing from Shai's game is that 3-point shot, but I don't even know if he needs it to get all the stats that we're looking for. But the difference maker for Shai is he just gets to the line, and he knocks him down when he gets there, shooting 87% from the free throw line. They got a taste of the playoffs last year after getting bounced by the Dallas Mavericks, who ended up winning the Western Conference. He was sniffing the MVP conversation, but I think this is going to be the year for SGA. And he's clearly the second best guard in the fantasy space. And that takes us to number 1. If we had a drop for Cade Cunningham and the Detroit Pistons, we had to have a drop for the number 1 guy. Luka Magic. That's right, baby. Luka Magic. We just mentioned Dallas got the taste of the sweet, sweet finals last season. Luka and Kyrie have the best vibes in the world. And can you believe we're saying that about Kyrie Irving? Luka played 70 of 82 games last year in almost average peak Russell Westbrook numbers. 33 points a game, almost 10 boards, and almost 10 dimes. Was an absolute fantasy monster. And when we're talking about Luka, we're almost saying number 1 pick overall of all the fantasy streets. If it wasn't for guys like Nikola Jokic, Victor Wembanyama, Giannis, Luka is right in that conversation as a guard. And that's why it's a no-brainer. Luka is the number 1 fantasy guard in the NBA heading into the 2024-2025 season. So there you have it, the top 20 fantasy guards this NBA season. Appreciate everybody tuning in. And if you like these types of rankings, get ready, because we're going to do wings with our next video and then finish it off with the top 20 bigs. So as I said at the top of the video, if this is your first time hanging out with us, I appreciate you being here. Do me a favor, smash the subscribe, hit the little notification bell, and then drop some comments in there. What are the things that made you the maddest throughout this video? And we'll see you next time.